Oh,
We're still waiting on
still
Brendan.
waiting on Brendan and Lincoln.
A lot of pausing.
Yep. Alright, so, yeah, I definitely... It's actually really good that, Adam, you chose this day to come back, because this is one of the sessions that's primarily going to be focused around mid, just because of how many different interactions there are with it, quite frankly. It's even more complicated than any of the side lanes, in my opinion. But I hope you in particular are going to get a lot out of this. Because I definitely focused it around this particular line. Let's see, was there anything I wanted to go over in this particular game with the sidelines? I don't think so. And Brandon's here. Okay, now we're just waiting on Lincoln and then we're good.
Yep.
I think so.
Alright, so just to preface this talk a little bit, before we even get into the game, I'm going to kind of outline some different ideas behind your basic attitude and how you should be playing a lane during this early game of Dota. Lincoln says that he's outside of his house right now and he'll be there in a few seconds.
Cool. Oh, also, are we recording this?
Yes, I am. I've
Okay.
got Streamlabs open and recording right now, so it'll go up on YouTube.
Alright, awesome.
Yep. So, one thing that I particularly was having trouble finding was games where a losing lane kind of cheesed the lane a little bit to get more out of it. You'd see a lot of that in the past where it's like you have a Centaur offlane or something and he just runs behind the T1 or the T2 and cuts the waves and stuff, or like Axe and people like that where they can't actually technically lane, but they go and get creeps anyways because it's just kind of a cheese strat. I couldn't find a whole lot of that, and I think next week I'm going to try and find some examples of it because it's surprisingly especially prevalent in professional games, but not so much in pubs. In pubs, mainly, you just see kind of if an offlane has a bad time, he either rotates into his own jungle or just sits in the lane and feeds, which is kind of unfortunate. But yeah, I really just could not find a whole lot of pub games with those examples. So maybe I'll just kind of sort through some pro games until I get it for you guys next weekend. But I think we'll focus on that particular aspect of laning, cheesing the lane, in the next week's talk, if we choose to continue this. Right now, it's just going to be about the raw mechanics, kind of explaining exactly what it is that you have to do and what you have to look out for. Attitude around the different lanes that you are going to encounter. How to efficiently farm, timing attack swings, different ways to pull the waves. Let's see, different ways to kind of abuse creep behavior, when to tank tower hits, how to progress the game at a faster pace than what you're normally used to, when to nuke out waves, how to keep wave equilibrium, when to keep lane equilibrium, and when not to. And then things like harassing that I realize a lot of you guys seem to have a little bit of difficulties with, like what is a free harass, or how do you get free harass? How do you attack someone without drawing tower aggro underneath their tower? Or how do you attack someone without drawing creep aggro if you don't have an orb, or something like that? Just things like that are basically what we're going to be going over, I think, primarily in this session. So before we start, does anyone have any particular questions for me?
Nothing for me before we start.
Okay.
Same here.
Cool.
Where?
Oh, Lincoln's here? Did I hear Lincoln? Yeah, alright, perfect. Alright. Cool. Alright, so let's start. So, behavior. Behavior is going to be the first thing that I'm focusing on during this talk. Behavior is what you need, your attitude should be at any given time during a lane. There's 3 general attitudes that you need to have. It's either at the very moment you can counter the enemy heroes, you have an advantage, in which case you need to pressure them. Now, this can come from having a level advantage, or even just the theory of the heroes that you picked that are just better than the enemy teams. So when you're in that pressure mindset, you should be able to win trades 9 times out of 10. That's kind of when you shift your perspective into, okay, I need to crank the heat up on this guy in the opposite lane. The second attitude that we're going to have is when the lane is even. Again, this all depends on their level, your level, and the nature of your heroes. But instead of an aggressive pressuring posture, when the lane's even, you need to come at that lane a little bit differently. You're not trying to constantly pressure them or take trades. What your goal is when the lane is even is you want to try and CS as efficiently as possible, potentially get a level advantage or an item or something that'll give you an advantage that'll enable you to pressure them, that'll push you into the next level. And the second thing is you want to look to take trades that are favorable for you. And we'll kind of go into that more in depth later. Now, the third situation that you're going to encounter, and that I'm sure everyone has seen a lot of, is where you're completely countered and you have just a super difficult or an impossible lane that you're at risk of dying in. In which case, you need to get creative. You need to rotate, you need to kind of stack jungle creeps, or get whatever you can out of the lane in whatever way that you can. Your only objective in these lanes is to not feed kills, and it's your job in those particular instances where you're completely countered to just not feed. Because a lot of times, there's these lanes where if you don't horrifically lose them, you're just going to win later on. But you can't do that if your lane is just snowballing off of kills, basically. Alright, so in this particular lane that I have set up right here, this is a very even lane. Quap versus Storm Spirit. Now, there's definitely some power spikes to both of them. I mean, it's a very volatile lane. Quap Dagger can really end up harassing out Storm Spirit early on, and Storm Spirit can really, if he's very mechanically versed, put down a ton of nuke damage onto Quap and force her out of the lane. So really, this particular lane right here is going to come down. It's not the nature of the heroes that counter each other. I mean, Storm gets a little bit stronger than Quap once he's level 6, but I mean, there's more nuke on the Quap, so it's still up in the air. This lane in particular comes down to mechanical skill, and that's exactly what we're going to see here with this particular Storm Spirit. I think this Storm is RomJK, who's like a rank 200-ish immortal right now. I think he plays some semi-professional tournaments within the last few years. I'm really not up to date, though, with how he's doing. But he was definitely tier 2 at one point or another. So instantly, right off the bat, what do we see here? Where's the positioning of the creep waves?
Sitting on his hill.
Right. And this right here is perfect. This is exactly where you want it in like 90% of matchups. If you are on Dire side. Now, obviously not Radiant. But what you want right here is all three of these creeps sitting perfectly on this low ground, and then the rest of your creeps on the high ground. Because this will give you alone the advantage of high ground, where you get the miss chance if the Quap wants to try and attack you. But also it makes CSing easier. The Quap has to attack uphill or come uphill first, risking way more damage. So this is the optimal situation that you want your creep wave to start in mid lane. Almost every single time, especially for level 1, and especially for heroes that are like super sensitive early on, like Shadow Fiends or something like that. So instantly, what was the first thing that the Storm Spirit does? Right here.
First on the range creep.
Exactly. First objective, focus down that range creep at all costs. You're going to see high-level players do this every single time, and you absolutely should too. If you're playing these heroes with nukes of any kind, your first priority is always going to be this. Even if you have to tank some right-clicks or harass from the enemy hero, it doesn't matter as long as you get that range creep secured so that you can always get your level 2 at a reasonable time. So you'll see. Now Storm is taking really, really good trades right now. With the Quap being on the low ground right here and the Storm being on the high ground, this is what you want to do. This is part of kind of a semi-free trade. Because what you're still going to do is take hits from the melee creeps if you draw aggro like this. But just by nature of being high ground versus low ground, you can take these trades every single day just because of that mischance, that extra kind of EHP that you get from being up here. So right off the bat, because of the creep wave is up here instead of on the low ground, and because Storm can sit on top instead of kind of even with the Quap, Quap's down to 33%, Storm's a little bit over 50%. So he's taking good trades. This is pressuring the enemy mid. Now, one of the other things is Quap isn't really focusing that, so now he's going to get a level advantage. So how does he convert this? That's another thing that I want to talk about too, and that I don't really see all of you doing consistently. I see you do it sometimes, but not consistently enough. And that's dragging the creep wave. Why does he do that? Quap's now on the high ground. The creep wave is meeting on her high ground. He doesn't want to take bad trades into it, so he pulls it back. You can do this with every single hero. It doesn't matter if it's in the safe lane and you're a melee hero versus a ranged hero, or in mid lane and you just want to take favorable trades and keep taking favorable trades. Never just let the creep wave sit in a really crappy spot. Pull it back if you have to, even if it just goes straight to the range creep like this. Because what that does is it kind of stops the Quap from being able to get good harass now. And the pressure is back on her. So here we go. One other thing I wanted to talk about as far as ranged heroes go. If you notice, whenever these guys try to go for these last hits, especially, like right here, just a few seconds ago, you'll see like the Quap get right up next to them in melee range. That's super important, especially in these range versus range matchups, because you want to minimize the projectile time that you have. And so to do that, what do? Get as close as possible so that you can get an attack quicker than your opponent, basically. Do you see how when the Storm is trying to go and deny that range creep, he walks right up to it, hits it, gets in front of it to make it harder for the Quap to right-click it, and then hits it again? It's just these tiny little things that win the lane. And this is what I'm going to basically be going over, is these advanced mechanics that you're going to need to start replicating if you want to be able to lane against like these high immortal players. It's literally just things like this. Basically keeping in mind your positioning to the creeps, your positioning to the opponent, when you can harass, like right now, when you can take a favorable trade, and understanding when not to, like when the creep wave was on the Quap's side. What the Storm does, pulls it back. What is the Quap doing right now? Trying to pull it back. What is the Storm going to be doing right now as soon as it's on his side? It's going in for trades. So this is all about pressuring. The Storm is now level 3. He can pressure out the Quap. So now what is he doing? He's getting right on top of the creep wave. He's going to try and deny as much as he possibly can. And then as soon as he's kind of outside of that mentality of denying, goes straight to pressuring the Quap. And he's able to go right back to the creep wave. This is how you win lanes in even matchups. Taking advantage of mechanical superiority, timing these attack swings, like you'll see it right there. The Storm is just out-timing her, basically. I mean, yes, he's got a little bit more base damage, about like 10 or 12%, but really what this comes down to is just timing his auto attacks much, much better than the Quap. Every single time. He knows exactly when the creep is going to hit it, and you'll see it every single time what this Storm is doing. Every single projectile that comes through, he matches his auto attack to match it almost perfectly. This is what you need to strive for in these lanes. As soon as the tower hit comes in on that creep, he's already timing his attack to meet it as soon as the tower hit comes, giving the Quap absolutely no opportunity, really, to CS that unless she does it just as perfectly. Same thing with the creeps right here. I mean, it looked like it had way too much HP, but the Storm Spirit times it so well that as soon as these creep swings come in, his auto attack is already in the air and ready to meet it as soon as they land. This is how you achieve mechanical perfection, essentially, in a lane. And this is why there's some matchups against really talented people that just feel like, oh my god, I can't get any CS at all, because they're matching the pace of these creeps, how fast the HP goes down, much better than you are. And this is what you have to look out for, essentially. Alright. So, now, how do we pull creep aggro back if it's, like, on this high ground here? Can anyone tell me?
You move to another lane and aggro onto one of the heroes in the other lane.
You could do that, absolutely. Or you could just right-click the person in the lane, right?
Oh, I thought you meant like if you.
Oh,
can't
if
see
you don't
them,
have
you
vision.
have a ward
Yeah,
or something.
absolutely. No. That's a really good point. And actually, I do the same thing. If, for example, if you're not seeing anybody in your lane at that very given moment, it's especially pertinent for mid. You're totally right. If you don't see this Quap on the high ground, you don't have a ward or something like that, or that you got dewarded, and the creep wave is in a really unfortunate spot, walk up to it, over here, click one of the enemy heroes, and then come right back to your lane. And it'll drag the creep wave all the same. There's no really laws against how far away the enemy hero has to be to draw the aggro from the creep, so that's very useful. That's something you can take advantage of as well if you're like a centaur or an axe or someone who relies on getting hit, essentially. You don't have to call the wave if you're an axe. You can save your mana and just right-click someone on the opposite side of the map, and all the creeps will automatically go for you. That's a really good point. Now, something else I wanted to talk about really quick that's especially pertinent with range heroes, but it's also useful for melee because you can do the same thing, is how you can avoid tanking creep damage and right-clicking at the same time. Because what you'll notice is whenever these guys are attacking each other right now and they're sitting right next to the wave, as soon as they right-click someone else, all the creeps are going to come straight to them. Does anyone know how to avoid that interaction, that behavior with the creeps?
Hit your own crate.
Yeah, you can, but there's also a way to completely avoid the interaction entirely so that you don't actually get any creeps hitting you like that guy just did there. The way that you can do it is actually starting, so towers and creeps all have something called an acquisition range, and I'm going to show you what that is inside of the chat. Let's see. It is, here we go.
Do it in the
Yep, in the team chat right here. Perfect. Okay, so this is the acquisition range for melee creeps, range creeps, and siege creeps. In order to not draw creep aggro, and this is especially useful for supports, you have to start an attack 500 range away from a melee creep or 600 range away from a ranged creep. So what that means is basically, I don't really have any distance drawer. but if you can imagine, like, this range creep is to the Dire's high ground, if this is like 500 distance, what you have to do is stand outside of that distance and then auto attack the enemy, and basically just don't press anything else until you cast that auto attack. And if you do it correctly outside of the creep acquisition range, it will not draw the aggro of the creeps, even if you don't have like an orb or something like that. So that's another way to achieve free hits or free harass on people, is if like the lane's kind of stalling out and you're not really doing anything, you have a ward up on this high ground and the enemy's just kind of sitting over here. One thing you can do is walk outside of the creep aggro, the acquisition range, right click the enemy hero, and then walk right back and get a free hit off on them. That's just something that you can do usually when there's like a downtime in the lane. But that's just one of the many ways to get free harass off on them. And it's a way to pressure the lane, essentially, for free. It's something you guys definitely should be doing, especially support. Super important. You don't want to just walk into the acquisition range of a creep and attack. You want to come from, like, the side over here or inside of the trees. I've particularly stressed attacking from the trees, and it has a lot of reasons. Some of them are hiding your hero from the enemy team so that they can't return the aggression. That's another way to get free hits. The other reason is 9 times out of 10, if you're just sitting in these trees over here, you're going to be out of the acquisition range of creeps, and so you'll be able to get more free harass off if you just right-click from over here. But that's something to definitely keep in mind. It's especially important early on. Later on, it doesn't really matter, especially once you get armor, and it's like, I mean, the creep damage isn't really going to make a huge difference no matter what. But early on is when it counts, and this is when I'm saying, like, these are the early game mechanics that you have to be aware of. It's just higher level players already take advantage of this stuff, and you need to start doing it too, is free hits, and not drawing creep aggro to hit you for 60 damage around when you can just kind of exploit their acquisition range. Now, towers also have an acquisition range. If you'll see right here, this red line, this is not the tower's acquisition range. Actually, funnily enough, this is the range where it can attack anything from. However, the acquisition range of the tower is about where this range creep is. Right here. Does everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is you can stand in between this range creep and this line, this red line right here, and attack someone, and it won't draw the aggression of the tower. Now, another handy tip is, again, towers work a lot like creeps. If you start an auto attack from outside this acquisition range and enter its acquisition range, it will not focus you out unless there's nothing else it's attacking. So as long as it's hitting a creep and you attack an enemy hero from outside the acquisition range, it's not going to swap from its creep onto you. However, if this creep, for example, dies and you're now within the acquisition range attacking someone, it will swap over. So what that means is you need to time your aggression underneath the tower to where you can attack from outside the acquisition range, hit the enemy hero, and have it not be when a range creep dies. So, like, right now, target is going to be acquired. It's going to be this one. So if there was an enemy hero sitting underneath the tower and you were able to be in between this range creep and this red line, you would be attacking the enemy hero, moving forward, getting a hit off on it, and then by the time this creep dies, backing off to kind of go back to a safe distance. So that's what I mean. That's another example of how to get free hits, especially underneath the tower, is abusing acquisition, range acquisition on all these things. Allowing the enemy to essentially think, okay, I'm safe underneath my tower, when in reality the tower is going to always be busy attacking the creeps, and you can exploit that fact. So, another thing that I wanted to go over with underneath the tower that I don't see you guys doing nearly enough is contesting the creep wave underneath the tower. Now, I think there's going to be some more pertinent games where I can show you more of what I mean. But what I tend to notice, and this is true of just anyone, a lot of Immortals suffer from this too. It's a broad spectrum, but almost everyone does this, where it's like the creep waves will meet underneath an enemy tower, and then they don't feel comfortable going underneath it. Because you think, oh, like this is the kind of danger zone, this is where things get spicy, this is where I can take a lot of extra damage, like they have a armor advantage, I don't really feel comfortable going underneath there. However, if the creep wave meets underneath the tower, you got to kind of get in this mindset of understanding what's safe and what isn't. And so a lot of the times I'll see just waves go free, especially in lower MMR brackets, like when I'm playing on my Smurf or something like that. If I get like a creep wave underneath my tower, the enemy mid, like 9 times out of 10, just tends to back off and lets me have like free CS underneath my tower. If you go up into like higher brackets, higher MMR, and I'll pull up a couple of games where I can really show this particularly, you'll see people will not just back off and give you free CS. They will actually sit around this tower until like the very last creep or the second to last creep and contest them underneath the tower. Just make it your life even more difficult. Because they have that understanding that they're not actually in danger if they correctly maneuver the behavior of the tower and the creeps and you to some extent. So contesting creep wave under tower is another thing that everyone can do, and it's not just the mid. This is the same for offlane, especially when you want to be pressuring the carry. You gotta not be in that mindset of just giving up free CS at any point during the game. If it goes under the tower and they're like level 1, for example, you can still sit underneath there in that acquisition range, get free hits off on them, get contest their CS and stuff like that. You don't have to sit back here just because the creep wave is under the tower and you're kind of worried about, you know, the dangers of that. So let's see. Alright, you know what? I'm just going to go over kind of all the concepts first that I wanted to talk about, and then we'll go through some more games. I'll let this run in the background in the meantime, because I really think it's a really interesting example of just how having better mechanics than the enemy can really just change a lane, which in all regards should be completely even. Like, this guy is an entire level ahead of him now, 3 minutes in. And I think it's just going to get even worse. So while this is running, we'll go over some other stuff. Let's see. Different ways to pull waves. So I think everyone's pretty well acquainted with using small camps and hard camps to pull like safe lane and off lane, correct? We've all kind of gotten to that understanding of, well, this is something I need to do during the game. However, something I really don't see enough of is timing it, because there's a lot of different things that you can do with these camps. They're not just for stacking, and they're not just for repositioning the lane. If, for example, you have lost the equilibrium, I think everyone knows, okay, you get 2 small camps, you pull it down, deny a creep wave, and then the lane comes back to where the safe lane core wants it. Same thing, you can do the same thing with a hard camp if you're there to deny it, right? However, there's other things that you can do. Like, for example, what if you don't want equilibrium? What if you want to, like, screw it up for this safe lane up here? Well, something you can do is just continuously pull this lane. And even if the creeps clear it, even if you don't kind of pull back the lane, what it can do is essentially pull these creeps off long enough that the next wave is going to spawn and then come in, and they'll be underneath the tower, and it just makes life more difficult. It lets you get more out of the lane. Because Slark versus Underlord is generally considered to be pretty Slark favored, especially with something like an Ogre. But when you're in this position right here, and I think I luckily zoomed in on a really good example, all of a sudden now Underlord doesn't have to contest his Slark for CS. He's just right here. They're both going to get free lanes, but this is a pretty good example of how you can get more out of a shitty lane than you really should. And one of those things is just pulling the creep wave and disrupting the equilibrium. That's something you need to keep in mind. You don't just have to sit in the lane 1v1 against these really shitty heroes for you. Make life difficult for them by pulling the lane or cutting the lane or doing something unexpected or that they can't deal with. Anyways, I want to rewind for that quap kill because that was really interesting actually. So, what else can we go over? So, positioning, and we'll see positioning, correct positioning, a lot more later on. One of the biggest mistakes of lower level Dota players is they don't understand how to position correctly inside of these early lanes. One of the biggest kind of punishers of that would be like an Ursa or a Slark or Monkey King or Lich and like people like that, where it's like all of a sudden you get caught out in the lane and they use their abilities and you realize, oh wait, I'm just dead because I didn't account for this, this, and this. That's something that I'm not really going to focus on too much. It's something you got to get used to more in the lane, but that's something as you play, you're going to have to get more acquainted with, is understanding interactions of dangerous kill lanes and how to avoid them, how not to just feed away kills. And a lot of the times it means just waiting to pull the lane or get free creep waves instead of actually actively contesting it, because you can't. You're just going to die if you do. So, another thing that I didn't really find a whole lot of really good examples of, but it's something to consider, is how to advance the game quicker. And what that really comes down to, TLDR, is playing around siege creeps better. Intricacies mean tanking tower hits on your hero when you can, to keep the siege creep alive for another wave. It can be the difference between getting a tower at like 7 minutes and getting a tower at 13 minutes, which can be massive, especially when you're on ganking heroes or heroes that really want to push and control the map. Think Leshrac or Broodmother or Storm Spirit even to some extent. But something that you always have to keep in your mind is keeping the siege creep alive, because this is your 5-minute objective, really, in a lot of the lanes, is just playing around this. It's the way to advance the game. Taking these early towers with this first siege creep, if you can, is insanely important, and the damage that it does to it cannot be understated. So knowing when to tank some tower hits in order to keep it alive is a very good interaction just to kind of immediately introduce you to. Because it sounds kind of counterintuitive. Why would I want my hero to be taking like 500 damage from a tower early on in the lane just so that I can get a little bit of extra damage? But the result is significant, especially when you're able to take those early towers because of it. It really can't be understated, and I'm just going to have to find examples to show you exactly the effect of it, because I can't really describe it to you if you don't understand it just from what I'm saying. Anyways, what else? Mid lane, most importantly, it's sometimes pertinent for like offlaners when you want to contest like a bounty rune or something like that. When do I nuke out the wave? For the most part, now that that power runes have changed in this last patch, when to nuke out the wave is basically going to be the easy answer is when you can pressure the other person with an extra level. For example, if I'm a Meepo and I'm trying to get my level 4 to get net, I already skilled like W and E, and I see an opportunity. Maybe the other person is really low, or I have a potential to get a kill on them. What I'm going to do is nuke out the wave as they're coming up to it, so that I hit a power spike before they do, and I'm able to capitalize on it. That's just a very simple way of looking at it. Another time to nuke out a wave is going to be around power runes. So 4 minutes, 6 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, etc. For offlaners, that will particularly mean 5 minutes. Let's see, if we rewind, I wonder if he's going to do it or not. I didn't actually check this, so I don't know.
The sniper went and got it with, he pulled the wave, and that was...
Right. So what they're trying to do is nuke down this wave, essentially, in time to keep rotation on the 5-minute rune possible. If they were actually doing what I think they should, which they don't. So, result of that is enemy team is able to go and contest the room. But this would be a good time to actually do it. Like you can see, I think... Yeah, okay, so bottom lane definitely did it. You can see right here, all they're doing is auto-attacking this lane as much as they possibly can, except the MK really isn't now, and this allows the lane to be pushed underneath this tower afterwards. So, honestly, this was more of a bad pull by the Dire. This is a mistake, really, rather than good play. The Dire pulled the creep wave at, like, the perfectly wrong time to drag this underneath the tower, so they lose out on much more contesting this rune than the Radiant does. This entire creep wave is basically going to be denied because they pulled at the wrong time. This is a perfect example of how not to pull, actually, and how it can hurt you. Doing it right here. Yeah, so this 4-minute 30-second wave, or 4-minute wave. You really don't want to pull these 4-minute waves, because if you do, creep equilibrium is going to go straight underneath your tower with the opposite creeps, and you're going to lose out on an entire wave if you go and contest a bounty. This is a perfect example of what not to do, and why it's so bad to do it. He's going to miss out on all this right here just because he pulled this wave. Loses an entire wave because he pulled it wrong. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you rewind a bit just to see, because they ended up killing the DK while the Grimstroke was farming the camp there. So I think there was either miscommunication or just like something was up. I think.
Yeah, because they're like right here. Oh, definitely, absolutely, 100%.
So Grimstroke goes to pull the wave.
Like,
Meanwhile, DK is stuck in no man's land.
Right. This is a really bad decision to pull it at this particular time. This is an example of when it hurts you to pull. B, you're not communicating with your offlaner what you're doing, and so it just punishes you tenfold. Like, if Grimstroke was here, they have an Inkswell, they've got his Q to slow him down, they've got more than enough kind of utility to stop this, but this is just a completely wrong decision. And this is an example of how it's just going to totally punish you in the lane. Alright, anyways, let's continue on in the order of things that I want to talk about in these next few games.
Right back.
Sure. One of the big things for the side lanes is who to harass, because I see all the time there's a lot of confusion on, well, do I have to go for the core? Do I have to go for the support? How do I trade hits against these guys? And it's really... There's no good answer to it, really. At the end of the day, it comes up to personal feel. Because it's like, for example, if this Underlord, instead of Tango's build, has like a shitload of regen, like he has a Ring of Tarrasque, he has a Soul Ring, and boots, and stuff like that, and he's just impossible to harass out, well, you don't want to really be wasting trading hits with him. You'd want to kind of go on the other support in the lane who maybe doesn't have all of that regen. So, who to harass is always going to change depending on your opponent's build, the nature of the heroes, the matches, the matchups, and what you can or can't get away with. So that's something you just got to think about. And it's really unfortunate that I can't give you a definitive answer, but Dota, again, is an extremely dynamic game that it constantly changes, even within the games itself. Some lanes that you could normally harass out, like I can show you, like a Naga versus Beastmaster, if your support just straight up feeds the Beastmaster, well, all of a sudden, this lane that should be completely free and countered now becomes impossibly difficult. And I think I'll show you that game, actually. It's a game that I ended up losing terribly. But that would be a really good example of lanes that just change dynamically, and I didn't really respect it at the time, but now I kind of realize my mistakes. Besides that, I think the last thing we really need to focus on a team, as a team, during the laning phase is rotations, because it's something everyone's going to struggle with, understanding when you're able to rotate and not, and that's like another thing that is going to be up to feel. But learning how to rotate and how to get off effective rotations is another part that's going to be able to make or break your games, especially during these laning phases. So, with that, I think we saw enough of this matchup. Yeah, I mean, Storm just completely dismantled this Quap. He really knew his mechanics, understanding how to pull and Remnant ahead of time by kind of moving forward with his character, positioning correctly, looking for good times to take trades. This is all part of just outlaning your opponent. So let's see, let's move into another game. Let's move into one of my games, actually. We're going to go... Let me see. Okay, here we go. So this is going to be an example that I picked out of
It's a great
safe lane.
hero selection page.
Hold on,
Some
wait.
of those captions.
Where?
Puck is in all your bands? Wow, Dav.
Oh, you're almost a master tier Meepo too. Look at that.
What are you talking about? Puck is in almost... Oh yeah, I hate Puck.
Bam.
I hate playing against Puck. Absolutely.
Wait,
How
but
do I see
you
that?
don't have Puck as a pick, do you?
What do you mean?
Do you have Puck as a
Oh, is it
on
played?
one of your?
Oh no,
Yeah.
I barely play any Puck. Oh, I think it's like terrible. I have a terrible win rate with Puck. Yeah, 26%. 19 games played.
Oh no.
Yeah, not my best. Not my best at all.
Giving me advice on Puck? 26% win rate on Puck?
Honestly, it's not even the hero. It's just game sense that I need to impart onto you. Because yes, I'm a dog shit Puck at Immortal level, but could I play Puck at Legend and stop games consistently? Absolutely. I have no doubt in my mind about that. So here we go. This was a really good... So I'll show you this game, and then I'll show you the other game, the Naga game that I lost against a lane that I absolutely should not have lost.
I feel
Alright.
like, sorry, just something I want to say with everyone here. I think we should, as a team, come up with, come up with, like, S, A, B, C tier heroes that we play and know we can play.
Absolutely.
And then make drafts around that.
So
Since
that
we're all
was
here,
that's one of the other things that I wanted to go over. Obviously, since I put together that kind of list of meta heroes from you, it's changed drastically. So one thing that you guys could be doing in your off time is kind of adjusting that, or just going over it with me. I don't really mind one way or another. But I think that's something we should definitely do in the near future in order to kind of put together some drafts. Is go over which heroes are currently viable and which ones that you play, most importantly, are currently viable, and which ones you should really just be working on. A lot of the ones that I'm seeing right now are like Wraith Kings, or Mars, or Slardar, or Centaur,
Beastmaster.
or Timbersaw. Beastmaster especially is one of the most broken heroes in Dota right now. And what else? Like Lycan too. I think Lycan is sporting one of the highest win rates in Immortal bracket that we've ever seen. I think it's like 63% or something like that. Just something completely ridiculous. So, in this particular lane that I'm looking at, it's not going to go real well for us until much, much, much later into the levels. I'm talking about, like, I want level 5 at least before I really start putting some pressure on this Mars. So what do? Instantly, right off the bat, pull the creep wave back towards me, and what do I focus on? This right here. Now, am I going to get it? No, because this guy ended up right-clicking it and screwing me up, but it's whatever. The thought is still there. You want to focus that range creep at all costs. So what do I do as soon as I kind of, after that has expired, pull the creep wave back as far as I can and just get some safe farm. This right here, this is a perfect example of, okay, I don't want to be anywhere near this Mars who's got way more base damage, more effective skills, and a Chen who can just regen them all up. This is how you play a lane very, very passively. By constantly taking these creep waves, staying in position, and pulling them away from the enemy so that you can actually manage to get some CS where you otherwise might not have.
Do you mind clicking on the Mars real quick just so I can see his items?
Sure.
Thanks.
Yep. So again,
Calling Blade. Forbidden
constantly,
Calling Blade.
constantly prioritizing the range creep, pulling the creeps back, even tanking some hits, just so that they're constantly out of range of these two and I can get a little bit more CS. This is how you passively play a lane. Every single creep wave that comes up, I'm pulling it around and I'm pulling it over to my range creep. This is how you need to play lanes where you're not comfortable in it, or this is a good example of an even lane, quote unquote, where it's like Mars and Chen definitely have an advantage in out harassing us, and out skilling us basically because they just have better skills early on. But if you correctly pull it and you correctly play the lane, it's tolerable for both people. So getting off free harass when I can. These are about to expire, so I send them to just attack the Chen. Not this guy, because he's got 9 freaking passive regen versus the Chen 7. So what's my most effective course of action? I'm going to go for the squishy support with 1 armor and less regen than the offlaner, because there's no way in hell I'm ever actually going to harass him out. Bane goes to pull. What do? Sitting back until I see the Chen leaves, and then pulling the creep wave over and over and over again. This is passive play. This is how you play the lane extremely passively and carefully to ensure that you don't A, die, B, get out harassed, and C, get some CS at the end of the day. So I saw an opportunity potentially with this half HP Chen, but then I'm realizing it's really bad, so I go right back. And I'm okay with giving up these creeps over here as long as I can free farm at least one other wave. So Zeus is up here now. Now my demeanor shifts. I'm actually moving up. I see that we have a person advantage and I can actually take this range creep. Maybe I can send out some illusions over here. This is still extremely passive play. I just want to make that clear. I'm not ever overextending a single time. It's always taking free hits where I can get them and prioritizing getting levels, because I understand my power spike is not level 3. This is not where I can trade hits. It's going to be later on, like I was saying, probably around level 5-ish. So let's fast forward a little bit. Pulling, constantly pulling. I'm out of position. I use my skills, try to focus on the creep, and get back. So now I understand I'm low, I use myself, keep going forward. So right there, that was my first opportunity, really. When there's a rotation from this Zeus, and he comes in, well, now I see, wait a minute, he can't trade hits with me. So I go up, start auto-attacking him. This is totally fine. This is just an example of a support winning me a lane that, honestly, I had no business winning at this point in time. I haven't hit my power spike, but because this Zeus made a rotation outside of this Timber lane, we're doing fine now. We're getting kills because of it. So Zeus kind of had this understanding, well, I'm not really going to do anything against a Wraith King and a Phoenix. Like, there's just absolutely no way. They're too tanky, they've got too much regen, they got lifesteal, they've got ways of killing me constantly, I'm not mobile. What does he do? Level 2, runs up into this lane and tries making some impact happen. What's he going to do as soon as that's done? He's going to go get the bounty rune, and then he's going to go stack. This is a perfectly acceptable support play. So anyways, now that kind of the lane has shifted a little bit, you'll start seeing my attitude during this lane is changing a little bit. Now I'm pushing the lane a little bit harder. Now I'm feeling a little bit more confident, because if you noticed, this Mars is still level 3, and this level 1 God's Rebuke is doing absolutely nothing to try and clear my illusions. So he's going to have to expend a spear if he wants any hope of, like, staying in this lane at all. So what does that mean for me? Now I get to pressure a little bit harder. I get to kind of make these more aggressive plays. This is the attitude of the lane changing. No longer is this passive. I'm not constantly trying to sit underneath my tower CSing. Now I want to kind of try and force things, make things happen, keep these lanes pushed out, maybe get a little bit of extra farm. So I realize that I'm close to level 5, so I'm going to wait to use my skill until I get it. And then instantly, what do? Send these out and start trying to force them back so that they're not attacking me. Mars has to expend all of his skills on my illusions, and I'm feeling pretty okay. Like, I'm taking a little bit of harass, but I've got my 3 Wraith Bands now, and this lane has gone from something that might have been even to, well, now I have a level advantage. Now everyone's feeling really pressured in this top lane, and I'm feeling like, okay, I can force them out if I really want to. And you can see, splitting up the illusions, forcing him onto him, and now this is an example of pressuring him off of the lane. He's not able to contest any of this CS. This is exactly what you need to do in your games. Understand your strong points and force these guys out of the lane. So Chen leaves. What do? Get these, force the Mars out. Nuke out the wave, go for the stack. That was my other priority because that's what the very nice supports were doing for me. So this is kind of this is really all I wanted to show you. Everything else is pretty elementary. There might have been some times where I can show like some super aggressive farming, where it's like I know I've dumpstered this lane at this point. Yeah, right here. So at this point, I know the Mars is no longer interested in coming back. I'm gonna level 7 to his level 5. He's just gonna have a really rough time. So what do? Now I'm trying to pressure this tower. And when you're in this situation of having a really, really good lane, there's a lot of things that you can do in all lanes in order to kind of force this tower down and progress the game. One of the things is nuking out the creep waves before they reach the tower, so yours is just automatically banging on this thing and forcing it to go down. Another thing that you can do is drag the creep wave to a hard camp or to a medium camp. If you're playing the Radiant off lane, one of the really cool things that you'll see a lot of high-level players do, especially Mars, Centaur, Axe, or Beastmaster players, is once they dominate this lane and they don't have anyone in it, they'll move forward, drag the creep waves, and then move them down to a creep camp and farm both of them at the same time. It's an example of pressuring the tower and farming as efficiently as humanly possible. This is what I mean by efficient farming. This is doing the thing that gives you the absolute most experience in gold at all parts throughout the game. High-level players, as soon as they win a lane, they'll go down there and pressure this as much as they possibly can, which means cutting the wave, bringing it down, letting your wave attack the tower, and killing anyone that comes to your lane after that. Because once the allied wave is underneath there, you can dive them no problem, especially with the heroes that have summons like Shen or Beastmaster or anything like that. So if you're in this position where you're dominating a lane, the next step is to apply even more pressure. Remember, now we're in this attitude of countered lane. So you can't do anything in this, so what am I going to do? I'm going to pressure you, and if you're in this lane, you're going to die. And if you try and contest me, you're going to die. So you're going to force rotations up here, at which point you can back off or fight with your team. Or you're just going to get way too much out of the lane, like I did in this particular game, where when you're like this, when you're forcing these waves back, you can farm up the Chen's creeps, or you can keep them kind of cocooned underneath their tower, and there's not a whole lot they can do about it. They just are forced to play defensively for the rest of the game now. So what's another thing that I just did there? Forcing the wave underneath so that they have a wave come to their tower, moving to the bounty rune to get it, and making sure that A, it keeps the core in the lane, otherwise he loses out on way too much. B, I'm securing objectives for my team while efficiently farming, hitting this hard camp, and with the illusions clearing out the wave. This is just a perfect example for you of how to correctly pressure a lane that you're now winning. And look, now the Mars is forced to expend all of his spells just on illusions. He's no longer harassing me. He can't pressure me at all. He's forced to just do this, or he won't get anything out of the lane at all. So, I see people teleport out of the lane. It is now free. I'm going to try and tank up as many hits of this as I can. Keep this catapult alive. You notice, even though I didn't have a creep wave, I moved all my illusions forward so that I could get it. And then this guy just fully Papegas out, and... yeah. All this is only possible because I'm correctly pressuring the lane. Let's say I don't get this tower right here, and instead of just Wraith King teleporting top, well, maybe now the Quap is able to go up there instead of teleporting back to base, or maybe the Phoenix was in a position to come up and contest me. And at that point, I don't get the tower. But because I'm constantly pressuring, always throughout all parts of the game, forcing my advantage, it compounds on itself. And so even though you guys might think it's something little, these are always things that you have to think about. Figuring out every single which way that you can advance the game at all points. And that's just going to create a more difficult game for your opponents to play, which is always a good thing. Alright, I think that's pretty much it. We're going to go to a more professional game now. I want to show some really just next level harassing from both the offlaners, actually. Both the offlaners in this particular game did phenomenally. I was just super impressed by them. Even though like this game ended very, very quickly, I think both the safe lanes really ended up getting just completely dumpstered. I mean, the PL had to jungle super, super easily, and the Void did as well, actually, at one point. I think he just ended up jungling until 6 and then rotating with his team. It never felt like he had some crazy impact outside of his skills, just because of how well this Furion in particular played. And Beastmaster as well. So this was Beastmaster versus PL, and then Furion versus Void. Yeah, we're gonna fast forward to the laning stage. Okay. So I want to focus on the Furion first, because this is actually the one that I spent the most time watching. Not necessarily Beastmaster, but Beastmaster actually did even better than the Furion did. So, first thing in the first wave, prioritizes the range creep. Gets all of his minions around it. I mean, you'll see this. It doesn't matter what hero you're playing. This is what you have to do. You don't even wait for the creep wave to die. You just prioritize the range creep every single time. And he's going to get an earlier level 2 because of it. So now what is he doing? As soon as he has a full creep wave, and as soon as the Void doesn't, and Void tries to go up and kind of hit those range creeps or get some CS, what is he doing? Not even paying attention to this creep at all. Just straight up right-clicks him constantly. And this is going to be like the theme of the entire top lane, and this is why I'm so like fascinated with this guy. He just took every single opportunity that he possibly could to just harass out the Void, and it worked. It pressured him so hard.
Oh hell yes.
Now there it is. Hang on, let's see it. This is a live example of exactly what I was talking about. Creep acquisition. He's outside of their acquisition range, 500, and right. Wait for it. Here. That's where it was. So because he's outside of that creep acquisition range, even if you attacked him from right here, I think this is within range of the 500 from this one right here, he's just going to get free harass off on him. Constantly. He got 3 right clicks off, and now the Void is down to 60% HP, just because he took advantage of that, and it didn't fuck up the equilibrium a whole lot. Now he is, kind of, because he's tanking creep wave. But just every single chance he gets, he's just constantly pressuring this Void out, getting as many hits off on him as he can. This is just such a fantastic example, in my opinion, of really how to not only just kind of pressure the enemy safe lane, but CS in between it as well. I mean, you'll see he's still going for CS and denies, but whenever he has the opportunity, he gets out of range of these creeps and right-clicks the void. Constantly. Now, another little trick to creep aggro, and something to do with behavior, is that you can only drag the aggro of the creep once every 3 seconds. So what does that mean? You right-click him from within the range of the creeps, right here, you drag their aggro. So now what's he going to do? He's going to toggle it off, and then he attacks him again. It doesn't drag the aggro of the creep. Until the second one. So, if you can time it correctly, this is actually based, in a lot of games, you'll hear the word tick. Tick of a game time. Ticks vary between games. This is so insane to think about. Like, if anyone plays RuneScape, for example, I think a tick is every 4 seconds. In this game of Dota, a tick is like every 0.6 seconds or something like that. So every 5 game ticks in Dota, the creeps are going to cycle between being able to aggro you and not being able to aggro you. So if you can figure out during a lane when their when the ticks of the game are happening, and you can time your aggression around that, what you can actually do is grab the aggro of a creep, cycle it off, and get an extra auto attack or 2 off, depending on, this guy's 1.3, so I would say maybe you get like 1 or 2 free auto attacks off, if you time it correctly between the tick cycle of the aggroing of these creeps. So like you just saw earlier, it took until the 2nd or 3rd hit for the creeps to re-aggro back on him, only because he was cycling in between the tick rate, for the creep's aggro, which is 3 seconds or 5 in-game ticks. So if you can do that, that just means extra harass, which is always a good thing. It's just another way of getting off free hits without these creeps attacking you. If not, it's honestly no big deal. I mean, I say that even though it really is, but this is just like an ultra advanced mechanic that you can think about later on during your kind of journey of becoming a better Dota player. Is worrying about ticks and how to abuse the tick mechanics behind creep aggro. So you'll see, creep wave comes underneath the tower. What does this prophet do immediately? Tries to dive him and pressure him. No free CS. Ever. Ever. You never just want to give away free CS if you can avoid it. I've seen you guys so many times just see this wave come underneath the tower and like back off or sit underneath, like in a safe distance away from the tower range, and not do this maneuver, which is pressuring them and forcing them to kind of take all this free harass now. Yeah. Any questions?
Would you consider Natures then as a viable offlaner? Or is it like a cheese pick?
Natures is difficult. Because it really takes someone who's very, very capable with it to make it work. For the most part, you don't see like a right-click build when you do see these offlane Nature's Prophets. I think this guy goes for like a Vlad's Crimson, because you still have to fulfill the role of offlaner, regardless of what you pick. So if you're picking Nature's Prophet, you still want to be able to build auras and stuff. You're not going to go like a straight right-click build if you're going 3 Prophet anymore, because people kind of have come to the understanding that it's more important to fulfill the role of offlaner than it is to, you know, do what you want, basically, which might be like have this 300 damage right-clicking Prophet build, which is hilarious. So
Sure, but
I think the answer to your question is not, is Prophet viable? Because anything can technically be viable. It's more of, you've got to realize if you want to make it viable, you have to A, build to the meta, and B, be very, very well versed in the hero and what you're going to accomplish with this hero in this particular game. In this particular game, I don't even think Prophet 3 was a particularly good pick. I don't think it really accomplish what you want to as an offlaner, which is provide initiation, provide team fight for your team. Really, the only thing that it did was harass this Void out so that he now can't get level 6. He basically gets 5 and runs to the jungle because he would rather do that than sit here in the lane against his Prophet, who's now going to be pushing the tower with this catapult wave.
I mean, they do have a clockwork on Radiant, so I mean that's more of their like initiation, and it doesn't need a lot. Like clockwork doesn't need a lot, so they could trade off having their initiation on someone.
The problem more is that it's just a really bad Nature's Prophet game. You really don't want to be playing Prophet into like Beastmaster, Nyx, and Ember, because all three of those heroes.
Your Q doesn't do anything to trap people. Like
Really, exactly. Yeah,
like,
I mean,
if you're playing against like a hero like Sven who's gonna want to get rid of
absolutely.
like a
100%.
Quelling Blade, then maybe it's great because you can just like late game you can just queue him, and if 4 staffs aren't ready for the supports, then like that guy's fight is kind of over.
Absolutely, and we've seen it in professional games too. I'm sure we've all seen kind of the memes where Arteezy gets sprouted on Sven and he's stuck there for like fucking 8 seconds because nobody can help him. Absolutely, I think the execution of this is fantastic. This Nature's Prophet offlane. He gets this tower in 7 minutes because he correctly pressures it with the siege creep. He pressures the Void out of the lane so that he's not really feeling like he's getting too much. He doesn't feel like he can be comfortable in this lane until it's over by his tier 2. He's doing his job as an offlaner, and he executed it very, very well. He prevented the Void from really getting as much as he would want inside of a normal lane. But that just has to do with just constantly right-clicking him, pressuring him, forcing him under the tower, getting off free hits in multitudes of different ways. That is what you need to focus on as these right-clicking heroes like Prophet, and a lot of times it's really more prevalent in mid when you're playing like a ranged hero that relies on getting right-clicks to A, get kills, B, pressure, etc. But these are the kind of things that you need to be thinking about in these particular lanes, is how do I accomplish this job of harassing? And there's a lot of very creative ways, and I hope that I'm able to like convey them to you to some extent. So now we're going to rewind it and go watch Beastmaster, because Beastmaster was also particularly impressive to me. Just with the constant aggression and the way that he was playing the lane, and the way that he just ends up dumpstering these guys. This is more a mechanically based matchup, though, honestly. This Beastmaster versus PL, because like you're both melee heroes and you both really can't take super advantage of these like free harass essentially until you start using this board to kind of force him out of the lane at like level 3-ish, level 5. But we'll just kind of advance a little bit. So, okay, first pull. What does this do? What is... Sorry, I'll rewind. Let's ask ourselves, because this is like right at the 2 minutes. Okay, so he could have stacked it, but he chose not to. But what does this particular pull by Nyx accomplish? What do you guys think? Can anyone tell me?
Does it bring the 2 heroes in lane to come last hit by that camp, and the Beastmaster just gets the free wave in lane?
Absolutely. That's one of them. I mean, Beastmaster's starting off with like this 4 armor build. He's got a ton of regen, and he's got the board to help him kind of cut this wave right here. He's got his passive also. Like, he can clear the wave pretty effectively. That's not what I'm looking for, though. I'm looking for something else. Can anyone tell me? Is there any other idea that's behind this pull, this early pull?
Forcing them come out to take an experience and go so you can keep them.
Okay, that's another part of it, yes. Kind of forcing them away. Now, what you didn't mention, and that's kind of what I'm going for. But what you didn't mention is the creep equilibrium. Because for the first 2 waves, you noticed, where was the creeps? They were right at the base of this tier 1 tower, and Beastmaster and Nyx can't really effectively harass them. if the creeps are just sitting there, PL just gets free farm. He's able to comfortably last hit underneath the tower. He's got huge base damage. No issues last hitting with tower damage. And it's comfy. It's a very comfortable lane for the PL and the Snapfire if you can keep this equilibrium right down here. What I was going for with this pull, and what I want to convey to you guys, is that pulls like this disrupt the equilibrium. Because now you no longer have this comfortable lane right next to the tier 1 tower. Now it's forcing, like Urgent said, Radiant to come up and contest this, get out of their comfort zone, away from that tier 1 tower where they've got the extra armor, they've got that security, and it gives this Beastmaster free farm as well, because he can pretty comfortably tank and CS this lane, and then draw it back as well. So now what do you see is the result of this? Well, now the result is Radiant are kind of overextending in a lane where they shouldn't be, in an even lane, and they're getting harassed down like way back to the tier 1 tower because of it. And now Snapfire's used up all of her regen. All of this is facilitated only because of this pull. Now, the concept of these pulls is not something you want to translate to safe lane, right? You almost never want to make like a single pull that leaves a bunch of creeps alive, because what does it do? It pushes the, like if you were to do that up here, pull it to the safe lane and then have the creeps survive it and get back, what does it do? It pushes the lane all the way to the offlaner's T1, and now they're getting a whole lot of out of the exchange. So this is an example of how to pull the lane, and it's effective for this off lane, but it wouldn't be effective in a safe lane situation. This is an example of disrupting it. Yes, go ahead.
Didn't you just show us, though, that that's what you'd want to do for around the 5-minute mark? Doing that,
yes,
shoving it under?
Yes. Not early on, though. Early on, it's advantageous for the Dire team, because they got off way better trades onto Radiant. Later on, what you want to do is pull the wave so that it does go underneath their tower, but now you can go for the bounty runes, and so they're faced with a dilemma. Do I go for the first objective and lose out on a creep wave, or do I CS and lose out on the objective? You want to force these things. That's why it's so good at 5 minutes, but not right now, is because at 5 minutes it controls an objective by pulling that lane like that, by forcing it underneath their tower. At 2 minutes in, it doesn't do anything. So now you see they can't actually re-pull the lane. So what is the unintended consequence? Well, now it goes back underneath the tier 1 tower. So now they're going to look to try and achieve something else. And that might be pulling it again, or just kind of figuring out ways to harass them. But you're just going to have to see. So Nick sees an opportunity, gets a stun off on him. And now remember, this kill, again, was only possible because they took away her salve with this maneuver on the pole. It's a tiny example of small things making big differences, and why you should be focusing on this. Focusing on these tiny things like disruptive pulls. Because if you make those kind of a plays, it opens you up to potential kills later on. These are not bad players, by the way. These are not terrible players. This is a rank 200 Immortal Snapfire, who's died twice now in the lane because of Dire's antics, essentially. But it's the creativity of Dire that's enabling this, and that's what I kind of want to show to you guys. There's multiple ways to lane that are not just sitting static in a lane and trying to duke it out with people. You can get very creative in forcing things, or kind of coming at a lane with a different attitude. And sometimes that attitude means just completely dodging the lane and cutting it. I haven't really found an example of that, but I'd like to show you guys it eventually, because that's something really important to do in lanes where it's like you're a solo offlaner, or you just absolutely can't get anything out of it. Support rotates out, offlaner goes down, cuts the wave, or drags it into a creep camp to farm, and gets something where he otherwise wouldn't get anything. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit more.
Oh, hell yes.
Cheeky. So neither team really, in this particular situation, made an effort to force the creep waves onto the tower. So what does this mean? It means that, well, now supports have to be the ones to rotate out. You can't make this dual rotation anymore, because if you make a rotation with 2 people from the Beastmaster and the Nyx, then the PL gets free farm and he's able to deny the waves, and he gets more out of the lane than you are. If you keep them in here, well, now it's even, and the supports can go duke it out, which is going to be really... It's just an example of a dynamic shift. So up in top lane, we saw, like, in one of the more previous games, the sniper pulled the lane so that he could force someone to be there and then ran towards the bounty room. In this particular lane, we don't see anything like that happening. So instead of both heroes rotating, what do? The supports are the ones that take it upon themselves to kind of take that hit on the lane CS and experience, and leaves the cores to do their thing over here, which is totally acceptable. It's fine. But this is just a good example of how and why these things change. So Snapfire tries to go for a pull. It's mostly unsuccessful, but the PL, understanding that this is now dangerous farm up here, it's way too far up, it's away from his tower, he's half HP. Instead of doing that, he's just going to kind of kill off these small creeps. Whoops. So this is another thing that I've seen you guys struggle with, especially Brandon, like you too, where you'll be like half HP and you'll think, oh, I'm totally fine to just walk back to the lane and attack it. Like, there's no way they'll kill me. And then what happens? You just go up to it and die. So in these situations, instead of just going up to the lane and dying, it's probably better to take what you can get and then look for ways to get back into the lane with your supports later on. So, what does he see? He sees everyone moving forward to try and kill the support, takes his chance, tries to go for the creeps, but he's going to get punished anyways. So, I mean, this is a rotation, and actually this is a super early rotation, but this is a good one. Because so far I've had you guys really focusing on rotating at points where you can get like an objective around bounties or something, right? This guy rotated as soon as he got level 6 and went bottom right away. And you'll see, because of this, they end up getting the tower, where maybe they might not have. This is a really good example of using that 5-minute catapult in the side lanes and rotating with... This is how you rotate with a level 6, essentially, on a hero like an Ember Spirit. Rotate with a catapult, get an objective. Even if it isn't the bounty runes and stuff like that, I think this is a really... this is a potent example of just how you can still get towers and things like that without necessarily having anything like a rune to play around, or further objectives like bounties or outposts and stuff like that. So Ember made that rotation, got that with his team, and now effectively the lane is cut short and just about over. So this is kind of interesting from the PL. I don't know if it's the correct decision, quite frankly, or not. But PL decides at this point, okay, we just lost our tier 1 tower at 7 minutes, pretty similar to the top lane. You'll see both these carries do the exact same thing, which is they just rotate right into the jungle so they can get their level 6, and then they'll go back to the lane maybe if it's like closer to the tier 2. What does this do, though? This makes it so that they're not giving up any needless kills. Yes, the PL's already died once. The Void hasn't really accomplished anything. He hasn't died, but he hasn't really gotten any kills. But they're not taking that risk. This is very, very calculated from both of them. They're not trying to just take really, really bad trades and not get anything out of it, basically. Like, this PL is not just sitting in bottom where the Nyx and the Beastmaster are going to have their way with him once BM gets 6. You can even see here, like, I mean, it's just ridiculous the kind of things that they get away with. This Beastmaster is pressuring so hard after he gets his level 6 in this outpost, because what does he realize? Okay, he's up here, he's super farmed, he has his first item, he's the strongest hero on the map right now. There's nobody that can teleport behind him to the outpost, and it's very important to realize this. You can play much more aggressively now, and that's exactly what he does. Pressures it with the tower, gets a couple of hits in, but not too many, and then is now playing in this position right here, which seems like hyper-aggressive divey, but it serves a purpose, and that purpose is putting pressure on this tier 2 tower when very few people can actually contest him. Like you can see, the Nature's Prophet even comes down here and tries to, just ends up dying to him. So, really just amazing how well both these heroes pressure their lanes. Beastmaster a little bit better than the Prophet, but that's kind of in part to getting that assistance from the rest of his team. But you'll notice with these players, as soon as they get a slight advantage, a tier 1, or this outpost, or a gank coming down and killing people, or understanding that someone's not going to come back to the lane, they don't just sit patient. They don't sit on their laurels and like think, okay, well, I'm going to go farm the jungle now. They're making plays behind the tier 2. They're pressuring the next tower. They're taking objectives. They're focusing on expanding their map control and their presence in the game at any cost. So that's something I kind of wanted to impart on you guys with this game, is that when you're winning these games, one of the most important things about laning is to capitalize on that winning, and not just sit passive for like the next 10 minutes, or until the 10-minute mark, as the case may be. Continuously work on pressuring and getting as much as you can, because like this Beastmaster, if you can hit 10 minutes with 2 items, a Helm of the Dom and a Necro Book coming out, you're just going to feel like a god for the rest of the game. This is how you snowball and just completely take over everything. Anyways, I think that's pretty much enough for that particular game. Is there any other questions before we move on? No? No one?
Nothing for me.
Okay, cool. Alright, oh, this is a funny one. Urgent, you might like this. I was watching this game live, and... close your eyes, don't actually look at this right now.
Too late, I saw Thompson is on a...
Thompson is definitely in this game. It was a very unfortunate game for Mr. Thompson. But Adam, this is going to be a really good example of how to get a lot of free hits in, and how to lane in equal lanes to the point where you're not overextending, but you're not playing too passively either. So this is Thompson Shadow Fiend versus a random pubber who's like ranked 200 something, I think. Yeah, 250 Necro. So in this particular instance, I would think like 99 times out of 100, Thompson's probably going to win this matchup. But
Thompson, more like Dogson.
Yeah, right.
Necro is some pro player.
You know, and that may be, but actually, the reason why I think not is because later on in this game, Necro says Thompson is actually my idol, and it's not no joke, is what he says. But he played Necrophos very well in this lane. This is what I really wanted to focus on in this particular instance. He did some things that I saw Sumail playing when he played Necro. Sumail would do them very consistently, and the result of it is he ends up really stomping this lane. So, I mean, just off the bat, you can see that Thompson definitely got a way better block off than the Necro did. So you'd think this is going to go really well for him. Misses the range creep, still secures it, and he's level 2 before the Necro is, so now you can get this pressure on. But now, what does this Necro do? As soon as that happens, I love this play. It's so little to you guys. I'm sure it doesn't look like anything, just when you watch it. Okay, now look at this. Instead of trying to right-click this creep or anything,
uses the ability.
He got an auto attack off on the Shadow Fiend, uses his ability, gets his ability off on the Shadow Fiend, and auto-attacks him again. Right there. He got 2 auto-attacks off, and he's full HP now. So that's free, essentially, besides the mana cost. But he got CS, he got auto-attacks off on Thompson as efficiently as possible, and is now level 2 at the same time as him. And so, oh, this is another cool one. So, he keeps on auto-attacking him. He doesn't re-click it. That's another thing about the acquisition range. Remember what I was talking to you about? So let's speed this up again. All these creeps coming up on the second wave are out of his acquisition range. Right here is where... I want to watch his player perspective, actually, just to make sure that he's actually doing what I would say he's doing. Let's fast forward a little bit. Okay, right here. Clears that. Right here. Boom! Right there. So this is more... So this is 500 range, apparently. From here to the second melee creep is 500 range. This is right where he starts auto-attacking the Shadow Fiend. Doesn't keep auto-attacking him, just lets it roll. And you'll look. This one was inside the 500 attack range, so it followed around and tried to attack him. These two weren't. These are free auto-attacks that he's getting off. He's just playing this so fucking well early game. I can't understate how much pressure he's putting onto Thompson because of what he's doing right now. Getting off these free auto-attacks. None of these range creeps are attacking him. None of these creeps are attacking him at all. And they won't unless he goes to attack him like a 3rd or 4th time. Like if he does it right here. Yeah, he does. At which point he draws the aggro. But what he's doing is just trying to pressure the Shadow Fiend early on as much as humanly possible to the full extent of his hero. And that's what you need to do to become like a top tier player, is just edge out every last little inch that you possibly can. And this guy was doing it. I mean, he just played that. I mean, there's absolutely nothing that I can think of besides getting a better block off early that he could have done better on this Necrophos. So now he could have seen, on that second part right there, you could have seen us maybe with the skill and gotten a little bit more efficient use off. But I just wanted to highlight early on how well he played that first level or two. Just unbelievably. Again, right there, you see it again. CSing with his skill, focusing on Thompson with the right clicks. Pressuring him as much as he possibly can. It's like, this is an even lane. Necrophos versus SF, like, I'd even venture to say, honestly, it's pretty SF favored if you get it, like, in lower matchups, but he is just playing it to the absolute, like, the possible limit of this hero, and the result is, basically, he's gonna be winning the lane now. And this has nothing to do with the hero matchups. I mean, honestly, I'd rather give the edge to the Shadow Fiend most of the time. But he's playing it so fucking well, it's absurd.
I'm a mad lad.
Alright, maybe that was a little bit of an overextension right there. That was a tiny bit of an overextension. But you can see that he's in a position to where, when he's got that HP advantage over the Shadow Fiend, he's able to pressure him. Now, he's the one that overextended. He didn't take into account the mango. And SF ends up dying.
Because the courier came
right.
just at that moment.
Yeah. So, now let me highlight this right now. This kill onto Thompson is absolutely not possible unless he got off literally every single right click and piece of harass before that. Because if he didn't, let's say Thompson even had like 100 HP more, so like 2 auto attacks. If he didn't get off 2 auto attacks, the SF has way more move speed than the Necro. He's not going to get off anything more at that point. If he had right clicked Thompson 2 times less, that's not a kill. And he's not dominating the lane as much as he is. But because he played that early game flawlessly, made all of those particular... It took advantage of everything. It's just amazing how well he played. And, like, I'm just shook by this guy. Just how well he played this Necrophos. I can't say it enough. Because he played flawlessly, completely flawlessly in the early game, he's going to turn what is, like, at best, a 40-60 lane into completely favored for him. And just totally dominate it. I mean, and now look at this. This is a perfect example right here. Where a lot of the times you guys back off and are more than willing to kind of give the CS under tower to this guy. Look at where he's playing. He waits until there's one creep left because he knows the tower's not going to auto-attack him, but he pressures the wave. That's what's the most important part. He's not giving free Necromastery souls off to the Shadow Fiend. He's underneath the tower, right next to the tier 1 until the very last second, pressuring to the full extent because he knows how to play his hero and he knows how to play the lane. That's perfect, and I want to see you guys being able to do that. You should be able to do that. The result is, he doesn't get more creeps, he doesn't get CS, he's getting off all this harass, he's constantly pressuring Thompson. Like, it's just, he's doing one right thing after another, and that's why he's winning the lane right now. Going forward, more. Sees an advantage, he's baiting it out, like he kind of feigned going forward to bait out the raise and then come back. And at this point, I mean, he's almost full HP now. He's going to get this regen on the Heartstopper, and he's got more than enough spell usage. Thompson's down to absolutely nothing. Look what happens. I mean, just fucking... When have you seen this? When have you seen this?
Getting a 2-time TI winning mid to abandon.
Because you dumpstered him in lane so hard.
Holy shit.
I mean, like, I'm telling you, this is possible. It doesn't matter who you are. If you can correctly take advantage of all of these lane mechanics, all of these creep behaviors, do everything you can to etch out every last little possibility in your lanes, you're gonna dumpster TI winners. Like, this is a no-name pubber that's like ranked 250, and he just dumpstered Thompson in mid. Like, I mean, and the only reason why that happened, why that early kill happened, why all this pressure is happening, is because this guy knew how to play his lane and his hero, and took advantage of every single thing that I can possibly think of. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, right? Like, oh my god. I mean, this Necro just played so amazingly. If you guys ever want a textbook way of playing a lane perfectly in the first 2 levels, this game is the one to watch over and over again. He did everything right. From abusing creep behavior to getting off as many free hits as you possibly can, to pressuring correctly, understanding when he had an advantage and he could take hits. The Necro did everything perfectly. And he dumpstered a 2-time TI winner into abandoning. Like, if you guys ever need inspiration as to what to do in those early levels, especially mid, because it's so easy to take advantage of these things in mid where you don't have 2 heroes to worry about. This is how you do it. This is the perfect example of just god-tier play winning a matchup that is very, very even. He knew not to overextend. He knew how to bait out the raises. He never overly pressured, except maybe that one time where he like dove underneath the tower. But he just played it so phenomenally well. Like, I was just taken aback by it, and apparently so was Thompson.
Was there any coming back from that, really? Like, the
No,
Necro was just so
absolutely
far ahead?
not. Yeah, he's completely dominating that lane, and Shadow Fiend is just destroyed. Like, your only option at that point is basically to fall back into the jungle and nuke out the waves, constantly ferry out regen. Like, it would just be a tedious climb back, and this Necrophos was, like, primed for taking a super early T1, like, just walking down lanes and dumpstering you entirely. So he figured, like, there's just no point in even playing it out, because I think he even knew just how well he was playing that. Like, there's no way he's throwing that. it's hard not to like feel the effect of just someone who plays so fucking well. Like that was just amazing to me. Okay, not quite as perfect, but if this particular game loads for me, which I don't think it will, it won't. Okay, so I guess I'm not showing you that one. Fuck it. So, okay, I'm just going to briefly go over this then. Basically what ends up happening is Ember Spirit is one of my favorite lanes as Meepo. I fucking love it when there's an Ember Spirit mid as Meepo because I win the game like 9 times out of 10. It's just such an easy lane. You can pressure them so hard. Like, as soon as you hit level 3, basically, Ember Spirit can never get another CS in his entire life. You have kill potential sometimes as the Meepo, and it just so feels good. Even if you don't, and like in the game that I will be showing you, the Ember Spirit plays correctly and plays very passively, the game still feels very, very good, and you can pressure just as much, even if they play correctly. This is purely because of the nature of the matchup, and that's why I wanted to show you this. Ember Spirit versus Meepo is a lane that you should win 9 times out of 10, assuming, well, 10 times out of 10 if there's no support rotations. But this is a lane where it's just constant pressure, and you need to apply constant pressure. And I wanted to show you exactly how you do that. Part of this, honestly, is just hero mechanics. Understanding power spikes, because I really didn't do anything special in these games. Besides knowing what to do and knowing how to kind of just play versus an Ember Spirit. And it didn't really matter. I think this guy wasn't even that highly ranked. Lotus. He's like a rank 2k. So, I mean, like, low, he's maybe 6k MMR, like high 5k. Let's just see this. So, good block from him. Now, what do? Instantly level 1. You're going to want to do this in any hero that has a nuke. Always nuke out the range creep early on. That's just the meta right now. It's just what's good. Like, there's nothing else that you can do more efficiently in this first wave. Nuke out the level 1 range creep if you can. Now look at what I'm doing, and yeah, I tank a couple of tower hits because I played like a retard and I accidentally right-clicked him. But did you see what I was trying to do? Pressure that wave underneath the tower? Same thing here, I'm just being totally retarded. But the concept is there, where you don't ever want to give him free CS. Now, there's an understanding at level 2, Ember Spirit kind of hits a power spike that he can abuse. Which is Sleight of Fist plus Flame Guard. Because at level 1, you can poof off the Flame Guard, and there's nothing he can do about it. Level 2, he can dodge it out of with Sleight of Fist, so there's no point in trying to actually take off his Flame Guard. So I back off. I think this is one of the only waves that I'm actually going to back off on. Because Ember Spirit has better laning potential than I do at that very moment. Now, as soon as I get level 3, first thing I do, pressure the Ember Spirit. Again, I'm really not even doing anything fancy. I'm tanking a bunch of CS, but or creep hits, but I am at the understanding right now that there is nothing he can do at these early levels to contest his my farm. And so I'm going to play super aggressively. Doesn't matter where the creep wave is. I'm not even going to bother dragging it back, because I don't care where it's at. And actually dragging it back just makes it more difficult. I'm going to contest every single CS. I'm going to pressure him whenever he walks up to the wave and attack him. And there's nothing he can do about it. So I don't have net right now. He pops Flame Guard. I'm not going to really contest him too much unless it's just with right clicks. I'm certainly not going to try to poof the wave down because he's just going to dodge it. But now Flame Guard's up, so what do? Move forward, try to contest. I fucked it up on that one, but every single CS, I am contesting him. Always pressuring him whenever I can. You saw right there, as soon as I got the CS on that one, I go for right clicks on him, Even if I fuck up and I give him that, I'm still pressuring him. I'm moving forward. Even if I don't get the kill, I don't want to overextend. That's a big misconception a lot of people have. Like in this particular situation, if you are in a countered lane, one that you're supposed to be pressuring people in, you don't want to overextend. In this particular situation, Ember's still pretty speedy, even if I kind of have the movement speed advantage. Maybe I get the kill on him if I dive the tower, but he still has Sleight of Fist, and I don't have any net. I'm not really sure where the supports are. I don't want to go check. If the lion is like right here and he just TPs into the tier 1 tower while I'm diving it, I can die, and that will be really, really bad. I'll go from having an amazing lane down to a dog shit lane. You don't want to dive. You don't want to overextend in these countered lanes. You just want to pressure them as much as you can. So in that particular situation, I understood, okay, I can pressure him with net. I can keep him in one place, but do I want to push him underneath the tier 1 tower? Chances are probably no, because even if I get the kill, I'm going to take a lot of damage for it, and I don't think it's worth it particularly when I can just do this and contest every single CS all over again. And he's getting nothing out of the lane. His flame guard's down. I'm going to try and walk forward, but I knew it was too late for that one, so now I'm going to come forward. Every single chance I get, I'm looking at hitting this guy. Pressuring, pressuring, pressuring. Always. This is how you do it. Pops Flame Guard. I'm kind of getting back. Now right here, I might have been able to kill him. I was kind of looking at this again. I don't really know what my thought process was, but I think right here I definitely could have killed him. I had 2 nets and I had the elf skin band. It would have been really, really close though. So I figured just get level 5, out farm him, because he's really not having a great time right now. Let's see what the CS last hits and denies are. Yeah, 23 and 8 to his 13 and 0. I am a full 3.5 creep waves ahead of this Ember Spirit now. And like, what's he gonna do? I noticed the DD was right there. Clear this, walk right back to the camp. So, right now, he's playing this completely correctly. Because most Ember Spirits might not respect this. Right now, I can 100-0 him, and I know that for sure. I got a super early 4-minute treads. This is my build versus Ember Spirits. I've got a DD. If he gets netted, he's dying no matter where he is. So what does he do? Plays it safe, sits back a little bit, and then runs to stack some camps. Very nicely done, Mr. Ember Spirit. I would say anyone that's lower ranked than this would probably try to contest me right here, or like get some kind of CS with like Slight or something like that, and they will die 100 times out of 100. And it's why this matchup is so one-sided in particular lower lanes. Okay, here, I want to talk about this. So part of pressuring the opponent is understanding which camps to farm. Now, I could have gone back and farmed this medium camp or this one. I could have gone back and stacked, but can anyone tell me why I'm taking this camp right here?
Just because it takes it away from the Ember?
Absolutely. It takes it away from the Ember. It keeps me in the vicinity so I can continue to pressure this tier 1 tower. I thought, best case scenario, this Ember's already farming this camp, and I can just walk at him and kill him, because he's going to be super low. But wisely, he went and stacked the further camp. So, I'm denying this from the enemy, but I'm also leaving these camps open for other things. Maybe it's so that the supports can stack them, or the offlaner can rotate back into it if they need to. The benefit to taking these aggressive camps and when you're afforded to pressure is that now instead of taking these, you're leaving them open. So if my safe lane is having a particularly rough time, which he was later on, not necessarily now, but if he's like getting dumpstered in lane, well, now the safe lane can rotate and take these medium and hard camp rather than risk farming these ones if there's like a super aggressive hunt them down lane. So I'm leaving that open for my team now. And I'm taking away from the enemy team. with this. This is another example of how to pressure. So what else am I doing? I noticed that there's a siege creep right here. What am I going to do? Team comes over, rotates with the siege creep, and now I understand, okay, this is a super easy kill. Tusk is already on top of him. Chain my nets together, get a kill on the Ember Spirit, and boom. So what could I have done better? What could I have done better in this particular situation that I didn't do?
Tanked for the siege creep.
Absolutely. 100%. That's what I missed doing. And honestly, even if I had only tanked like 1 or 2 hits, I would have still had the siege creep for this push. I didn't particularly feel super comfortable pushing with my meeples because I was kind of low, but you're totally right. What I should have done is tanked 1 or 2 tower hits and then rotated into the jungle afterwards, because I would have gotten a lot more harass onto this tier 1 tower. So that's a mistake that I did.
With around the exact same health, you could have taken 1 hit on each.
Absolutely. I'm not trying to make any excuses. You're right. No, that was the right play, and I messed up.
No wonder why you're starting to hate this game.
No, I mean, I'm improving every single day just like everyone else is. I'm not plateauing just because I'm higher ranked. Like, there's always things that I can improve on. I'm not playing anywhere near that Necrophos is. I'll tell you that right now. So, those are just examples of what you can do in a completely countered lane, in a lane where it's like the opponent just can't sit anywhere near you, and what to do. Pushing up into their jungle, killing creeps behind the tower, forcing the creeps into the tier 1 tower, tanking hits for the catapult, things like that are so important to do in these particular matchups when you really want to advance the game. Now, in this particular situation here, I didn't really see a whole lot of opportunity. Ember Spirit is already 6, which is like a slight power spike for him, and I figured I could just out-farm him, which I ended up doing. And that's pretty much the end of the lanes, essentially. They're a little bit shorter because Ember Spirit wants to rotate with 6, and he does. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to show this as a pretty good example of how to particularly pressure someone who just has absolutely no chance of you. Never, ever, ever overextend. There's a reason why I didn't dive that T1 tower, even though I probably could have gotten the kill on the Ember Spirit. You don't want to risk these rotations from the supports. You don't want to risk giving up kills. Just pressure them. I see so many times where it's like you guys are in a completely winning lane, and then it's like you dive to tier 1 because you think you're invincible, or you go under, like, make some kind of a silly play where you make bad trades and then you die, or you don't account for support TPing in. Part of playing out these countered lanes and winning games because you have a countered lane is making sure that you account for all of that. And so that's just something you're going to have to get a feel for as you get better. But it's certainly possible. You just got to understand the limitations of your heroes, which means how to effectively harass, how not to overextend and die, and when to just take your power spikes. Wait for your power spikes and make things happen around them. So for Meeple, like I was showing you, it's his level 3. Ember Spirit can't do anything, and I was 3.5 creep waves ahead of him, and it's going to stay like that for the rest of the game. Even if I didn't get any kills off on him because he played defensively, which he has to, mind you, in these lanes. Ember Spirit 100% does need to play defensively. Even if he played correctly, it doesn't matter, because I didn't overextend, I didn't give up any kills, and I'm going to snowball because of that. I fucked up a kill here, but that doesn't matter. It's really the concepts that I want to be going over more than anything like that. So, what else did I want to pick up? So, yeah, I just want to make this clear. Ember played this one totally correctly, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. Maybe he could have done a few things differently, skill-wise. Maybe going for more Sleight of Fist rather than Flame Guard. A point in bolas, I think, is fine against Meepo, but he definitely picked and chose the correct times to go and stack, the right camps to stack, and everything like that. It's just the nature of the hero that makes this matchup so difficult. And so this is what I mean by pressure. I don't mean dive the tier 1 tower and relentlessly attack them. I mean make their lane impossible in any way that you possibly can. And you'll win games because of this. Like, I didn't get any kills off on this Ember Spirit, but I dominated this game, this particular match, because I played the lane correctly. I played it how you're supposed to play it. And in these particular games, there's really just nothing you can do. So, do we have any other questions before we move on? I think I'll do one more thing. We're about reaching 2 hours, and I've got to go for something soon. So we're going to cut it off a little bit earlier. But we'll have much, much more to talk about on these topics of laning mechanics and things that you can be doing, especially in the side lanes. I think I'm going to be focusing a lot more on the side lanes later on next week, more so than mid. But, like, Adam, do you have any particular questions or anything like that?
No, not really.
Okay, cool. Anyone else?
No.
I think I'm good so far.
Okay, I think I...
So wait, can I ask a clarification question real quick?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Drawing creep aggro.
Absolutely.
So, you click them outside of the aggro range. They're
Yes.
not going to aggro onto you when you attack them that first time.
Yes.
If you continue to auto attack without clicking away at all, do they aggro on the second auto attack, or is it not until you click away and click on them again?
Let's test it out.
Within the range.
Let's test it out so I can show you.
Got a mid for retards. There's my puck.
Got a mid for yeah, pretty much. Let's just do a Shadow Fiend.
Why not Necro? Channel that Necro.
I channel the inner Necro. Seriously, after watching that game, I want to channel my inner Necro, man. Let's put him like right over here. So I'm gonna auto attack him like this. Oh no, I need vision. Alright, where's the ward? So outside of the creep range, 1, 2. Okay, so it's the second one.
Okay. Yeah.
So you only get one free attack by doing that, basically.
Yeah, but you just cycle through it if you're playing support in a lane. You just
right, exactly. If you're a support, you can completely abuse that.
I really didn't know that, and like, there's sometimes I play support heroes, and I'm like, how the heck do you harass like Venge without passive? It's like you're basically almost like Monkey King.
So yeah, I was inside. I was inside the range for that. But now I can walk up, just right up to these guys. Free hit.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's basically
the tick rate.
the main idea is just moving back and forth, like go out of range, get the free hit off, and then back off, and then rinse.
Exactly. Rinse and repeat. That's how you effectively harass with a support in the side lanes, for example.
Yeah.
And that's how you
doesn't have any range.
And that's also one example of how you can get free hits off as in the mid. This is an example of what that Necrophos was doing to Dumpster Thompson. Like, these are things that you need to do in your lanes, and these are the things that are being done to you that make Immortal lanes feel so difficult from Divine lanes. Okay, so let me see. Let's get a new hero. I want to show you
from trees is when you break the vision, they'll stop aggro, and then you have the 3 ticks basically to get another auto in. So you're able to get your first auto attack in from trees. The creeps will aggro, but then once you stop and you don't attack again, you go out of vision. It stops. They won't chase. They'll go back to the lane.
Right.
And you
yes,
get another
and that's
one
another.
and they won't re-aggro.
That is absolutely another advantage to using it from the trees as well. Look, I can do this on Monkey King. I can just attack him from back here. Oh. Sometimes it's wonky, I suppose, but
I don't think melee heroes have the.
Is it? I thought for sure it was.
I don't think so,
That doesn't make
because
sense.
their acquisition range is in melee range. So for a melee hero to go up and hit something, it's different than a ranged hero.
Alright.
So I want to see because. No, it worked.
Yeah, it worked like there.
Right there.
I guess you need to click off like immediately after you.
Yeah, oh, that might be it. You have to cancel the backswing when you're a melee hero on these things. Yeah, that's it. Okay, you have to cancel the backswing. Otherwise, the backswing starts a second attack for melee heroes, and then it aggroes the creeps off of the backswing. That's what I was thinking of.
It's because like the moment your animation for your
Yeah. Because if you start that second one, that's when it starts the auto attack. Yeah, that's it. Yep. It's the animation for the second attack that's fucking up. So no, you can do it with melee heroes as well, if you do it correctly. Now, let me show you something else. Where's the... There it is. So let's see. This is right here. Oh, no, see, I fucked it up. Remember what I was saying about waiting... Yeah, so it does switch whenever the creeps are still alive. I'm sorry, so the only time the tower aggro is going to switch is when a creep dies. So if you're able to... Let me see, let me try and clear this real quick. Where is it? Free spells. Okay, so if you're like right here, and then you're attacking like this, doesn't draw the tower aggro. Even though I'm going in here and attacking them, it's not drawing it until the actual creep wave dies, or until the creep dies. So what we're going to see, I can even go inside right here, where the tower acquisition range isn't, and get free hits in. Constantly. As long as these are still alive and it's not swapping, the tower aggro will not swap to you. This is how you get free hits in underneath the tower. But if I attack him within the acquisition range, well, okay, wait a minute, never mind. I guess Dota's just fucking crazy.
You were too far out.
Hang on, let's wait for the next creep wave just for this example.
I think it's because the creeps were also attacking the hero.
So if I walk underneath... Oh, there it is. Okay, so it waits for the first one to die. As soon as that first creep dies and you're still attacking that enemy hero, then the tower aggro switches to you. Ah. So, there's definitely ways to achieve this, though. These free hits underneath the tower, and you'll end up getting a feel from it. But you can start right about here. And you'll never draw tower aggro by doing it like this. And this is so important. This is one of the ways that you can efficiently and correctly harass people underneath the tower when they think that they're safe. So this is something else that you guys need to work on. Getting comfortable with tower acquisition and aggro. Let me see if I can... Oh yeah, there it is. See how I was actually within the acquisition range of the tower, and then I right-clicked him? Didn't matter that the creep was kind of still attacking him, and that it was still alive. The tower immediately swapped off to me. So the tower's acquisition range is going to be like right where this blue line ends, essentially. Right where that blue line ends. So like the center of it is right about here. That's the tower's acquisition range. Anything between that, and you can just get free auto attacks off of. Obviously not there, because I waited until the creep was dead. But if you do it correctly, is what I'm saying. Does that make sense to everyone? All the NPCs in Dota have an acquisition range, and your job as a very, very high-level Dota player is to figure out what that acquisition range is and how you can fucking abuse every single aspect of it, everywhere and every time that you possibly can. So, going forward, I don't ever want to see you guys have a creep wave going underneath their tower and you just watch it, like, watch it die. You know that you can get stuff done underneath it now, and I want to see that from now on, alright?
Don't even
Yeah.
trip. I got you.
Awesome. Any other questions?
I have several, but not necessarily directed towards you, towards the rest of the team and Mark.
Okay.
So I saw Brandon posted the North American Dota 2 Amateur Dota 2 League, which is different than what we're in.
I do
This
not
one-
actually know what ranked people are in there. I did see they have a lower tier one, but that one's capped at ancients.
So the Division 1 is basically everyone. Division 2 is everyone, but it's less serious. It's more of just like, it's
People are just trying to chill in that league. You know?
yeah, it's like not as serious. Division 3 is like the kiddie pool. Division 1 prize pool is 3,000, Division 2 is 800, Division 3 is 200 for the total prize pools.
Wait, 300 and 200 what? What are those
So
numbers?
I'm gonna post it. Dev, actually, there's a whole coaching notes section.
Oh, yeah, I should probably do it there. That's just an outline that I'll have for next session. Is going to be basically once we start going over everything else. I feel like most of this stuff was aimed at mid lane. We'll be focusing on the side lanes and intricacies and little tactics of the side lanes in the next talk. So I hope this wasn't like too much information for everyone.
I
No,
think
it was good.
it's good.
The tower acquisition stuff is stuff I always kind of knew about because I was always like, sometimes the tower like doesn't de-aggro for whatever reason, but like that explains a lot. I
Good.
understand it a lot better now.
Good. I'm glad. That's all I really want to hear is that you guys have a firmer grasp of these concepts after these sessions. It means I'm doing my job and explaining things a little bit more to you and getting you a little more comfortable with the intricacies that will make you better.
Mark, I made a new channel called Future Tournaments.
Yeah, I'm looking at the ePulse thing right now.
So that's the that's like the sign up. This is the Reddit post. This guy ran the Underdog Dota 2 League. I don't know, Dev, if you ever.
I casted a couple of games in Underdogs. I don't think I ever played in it.
Yeah, this guy was the manager. He ran the Underdogs